doing a bit of late night streaming, late night here, maybe not where you live. What time is it right now? It is 10:27 p.m. That's pretty late. But I did get some rest earlier this evening, so now I have some extra energy. Why not spend it by doing something useful? AKA recording my weekly show, which I haven't been able to do due to energy problems earlier this week. But I do have a lot of things to talk about, and I actually have a lot of things that I'd like to share with all of you, so that's what we're going to do. Probably way too much for one show. And in case you're wondering, no, I haven't seen the season's finale of The Mandalorian yet. That is because this season I'm watching it with friends, and they are not available until Sunday evening, so I have to be very careful not to get spoiled. So, how am I feeling? I am still very tired. Actually, the fatigue has only increased. It's almost as if now that I'm done working, or at least done with my TV work, it just releases itself. I haven't allowed myself to be tired, but it's all well. I mean, I'm hopefully going to be able to recover in the upcoming weeks. But yes, please don't post any spoilers. I really try to stay focused and enjoy it for the first time with friends. It has been very difficult because most of the times we could only watch it on Sunday evenings. And it's a lot of fun to watch it together. It's a whole different experience from, normally last season or the first season I would watch it like very early Friday morning, almost after waking up immediately. It would be live on Disney Plus in the Netherlands and I would watch it. So I'd be one of the first. But then I was also doing the YouTube series, and so I was very motivated to always be on top of my game. But this year with COVID, there is just no way that I can do, anything substantial on YouTube right now, unless it's this, just chatting and talking. So that also took away the urge to always be one of the first to watch it. Although I have to say that, especially now with the finale, good Lord, if it were up to me, I would watch it. But I kind of feel it's not fair towards my friends because they too are waiting so we can watch it together. But for other series, I probably will make a different choice. Maybe the next season I will revert back to my old Star Wars super fan behavior. But it's just what it is. Welcome to all of you in the chat. Also, welcome to all of you that are watching this on Facebook. Most of the time, I'll go back afterwards to Facebook and look at your comments there. But if you want to really experience the dynamics of a big community that is chatting while I'm doing the stream, then by all means go over to Father Roderick on YouTube, because that's where a large part of the community gathers whenever I go live. So, now people are posting fake spoilers about Star Wars finale. Very funny. Oh, well. But I'm also a bit sad. I realized when was it? When did I see the previous episode, which was awesome, by the way. I saw it on Tuesday or so. I had to wait 5 days before I could watch it. I suddenly realized it was there was only one episode left. So I felt a tinge of sadness when I realized that. Oh, well. There is always a reason to go back, of course, and to rewatch the episodes, and maybe I'll do a commentary when I feel a little bit better. So, am I using a Marie Kondo-ish method of energy conservation? Well, I'm very intentional on how I spend my days, and one of the things that I'm working on, and I'll talk about it in the show as well, is trying to prevent myself from willing too much, from wanting too much. I'm usually very much driven by this inner, I don't know, creative drive. And there are always a lot of things that I think I need to do. But that has been very detrimental to my health, because right now, the thing I really need to want is to not do anything. And so I'm doing a lot of exercises to kind of get rid of that urge and calm. Especially I have to calm my mind because the mental energy is also a big drain, an energy drain. And also posture. So I've realized that I'm always like hunching forward as if I'm about to run a race. So that's probably a subconscious way of my body, being constantly on alert, and that causes a huge energy leakage. And so I need to also train myself in relaxing more, sitting back, which I'm trying to do, but the microphone is on the desk, so I can't really lean back because then the audio will not be as good. And also pacing myself. So I need to do a few. I try to do the most important things, the essential things. Anything that's not essential. So I have a ton of ideas every day, and if it were up to me, and I would have all the energy and time in the world, I would follow up on all of them. But I have to be very strict with myself, which is so hard. And just saying, well, that's not essential. I can also do that next year. I'm really trying. Like for instance, I so wanted to do a Star Wars commentary for every episode of The Mandalorian. I had a lot of fun. But I also remember how much work it was. It basically took me an entire day to put together a 10-minute video. Because you watch the episode, then you rewatch it, you take notes, then you think about it, you try to find the structure, the mythological elements, etc. Then you compose a narrative, then you have to record it, then you edit that recording, and then you post it. And then the day is over. So I quickly realized that there was no way in the world that I would be able to do that this year. So I'm just going to push it forward. Fortunately, we're hopefully getting a few more of these seasons. And there's a lot more Star Wars on the horizon, so there is no essential need for me to do it right now. I kind of have to get over that idea of disappointing my followers, which is also a constant drive. But that's just insecurity. It's like, well, if I don't put out new videos every minute, if I don't post on Facebook every day several times, then I'm not worthy to be followed anymore, which is, of course, crazy. We need to make a compilation of all the fake spoilers. Maybe I'll record. Well, the thing is, the reaction videos are only fun when they're really on the spot. I can't do it a second time. I don't like to fake it. There's way too much inauthenticity already on the internet. But the thing is, I'm watching it with my friends. And that's usually in a darkened living room. So I'm not sure if I can record my reaction. Plus, I've done this before with live video instead of with a trailer. And the thing is, these companies do put, as long as you react to a trailer, usually the audio of the trailer has been granted, let's say, fair use. But that's not the case with TV. And I remember doing like a reaction video on one of the episodes of the first season, and I got flagged. I got a really dire warning of like, don't do this. We will destroy you. So, and it's obvious why they do that. They don't want these episodes to be out there on YouTube. And of course, the algorithm can't tell if you're just commenting or if you're copying. So, but, I'll think of something. Maybe with the audio off or something. Can I celebrate the Mass in extraordinary form? No, I have assisted at masses like that in Rome. I haven't received the proper training to do a mass like that. However, last Sunday we did do mass ad orientem, just using the regular form, and then part of the mass was in Latin. So I'm pretty at ease in Latin, and Gregorian chant is a tradition that is still very much alive in the Netherlands. So maybe that's also why I've never really felt the urge to, celebrate in the extraordinary form, because I find the ordinary form celebrated well already very beautiful. But of course, that must be a very different experience if you live in areas where, it's the 70s. You get the flower power liturgy. That's very kind, Margot. I appreciate it. I did not see the last episode of The Mandalorian for those of you that are joining me now, so please don't spoil it. I'm waiting for my friends to have time to watch it with me. We've watched the entire season together, so I don't want to break tradition. Although, it's hard, I can tell you. It's really, really hard. We're going to go in lockdown. You know what? All the other stuff, I will talk about it in the show. So I'm going to record my podcast, which I always do as much as I can live on YouTube and on Facebook. And hopefully I'll be able to get to a number of things that you want to know. And if not, we can always talk after the show as well. So here we go. Hey, hello there. Welcome back to another episode of my weekly show. I'm Father Roderick. And in the Netherlands, we are officially again in lockdown number 2. We all have to stay home. Only a few people can go to Mass. And Christmas has been canceled. I'll tell you all about it in this show. Which is brought to you thanks to my patrons over at patreon.com/Father Roderick. And I'm so grateful that I have that community of supporters. Thank you so much if you're one of them. And if you're not and you would like to help with this ministry and with these shows, then by all means, take a look, Father Roderick, on Patreon. And if you sign up and become a monthly supporter, you get access to a second hour every week, another podcast called Father Roderick to the Max. And this week, I'm going to talk about a rosary, praying the rosary as a form of post-COVID therapy. I'm not kidding you. I got that advice last week. I'll also give you the recipe, one of my favorite recipes for creamy mushroom tagliatelle, so pasta. I'll tell you what I learned on the internet. This is one of the best courses. In just 10 minutes, I learned something essential for my work in TV, and also could be interesting for other people that are doing video editing. I'll do a review of Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur in my comic book section. We'll talk about Christmas ideas in lockdown. And, of course, I have to talk in the games section about Cyberpunk 2077. But that's not going to be part of this show. That's all going to be part of Father Roderick to the Max, exclusively for my patrons. So thank you for your support.
Do you know what's going on? This is what's happening in your world.
Face it, Catholics rule. We got Boston, South America, the good part of Ireland, and we're making serious inroads in Mozambique, baby.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
What a week. So much has happened. Most important or most impactful on me and on everyone here living in my village and in the town and in my country is another lockdown. We had some very strict regulations put in place a couple of weeks ago. However, they didn't work. People are just tired of all the rules, and so they did not really follow up on these rules and regulations as much as they did in March. In March, it really helped flatten the curve very quickly. After a few weeks, we really went into the safe zone. That did not happen this time, and so instead of giving us more freedom around Christmas, the government was forced to put us all in another lockdown, which is, of course, extremely difficult because it's happening around this time. One of the exemptions in the Netherlands, because of our constitution, are religious groups. We can still gather with as many people as we want, etc. Of course, no one does that. Every the big majority of the religious communities are very, very responsible. They don't want their faithful to become ill and to die, especially, because in a lot of religious groups, the majority of their members are vulnerable people of an advanced age. So you see a lot of self-regulation, and our bishops have been extremely careful. And so for months now, we've only been allowed by the bishops to gather with 30 persons, no matter the size of your church, whether you have a cathedral or a big, as long as people can sit at a meter and a half away from each other, and there are all sorts of other precautions. You have to wear a mask and everything. The maximum amount is 30, unless your church is even smaller and can't house 30 people at a safe distance. But most churches can cope, which means that the majority of our parishioners can't come to church. The people I miss the most are the families and children, because most families will say, well, we need to give priority to the older people, the elderly, especially those that live alone, because oftentimes it's their only contact that they have, their only social contact during the week. But after our government decided to put the country entirely in lockdown, which means you are discouraged to go outside, only for essential things, and of course if you want to go for a run or a walk alone or a bike ride, we like to ride our bikes, then that's okay. But all the stores are closed except for the ones that provide us with essential stuff like food or toiletries, etc. So basically that means that only the small stores and the supermarkets are open. All the other stores are closed, which I think will go a long way to reduce the number of infections, because the last few weeks have been crazy. We've been infected by that Black Thursday craze, and then Cyber Monday, and the streets everywhere were packed with people not keeping their distance. They all wanted to shop, and I think it's like an exaggerated reaction to this miserable year. People are trying to self-medicate, I think, just by spending and by buying stuff. So after seeing this, and I saw that in my own city here, which is not even a very big city, but Amsterdam, Rotterdam was even worse. It was obvious that something needed to be done. So you cannot not gather outside anymore with more than 2 people, which is especially important for younger people that tend to group together, especially now that their schools are closed as well. But after this lockdown was announced last Tuesday, the bishops 2 days later announced that they're not going to close our churches entirely, but on Christmas Eve, which is usually the evening that a lot of people want to go to church, even if the rest of the year they don't care that much for going to church, that you won't get all these problems at the door. If you would only allow 30 people in and you need to reserve your seat beforehand, then of course people would still try it out and gather, and maybe gather in front of churches, etc. So the bishops have said, we're not going to do that. The only way in which you can join your parishioners is by live stream. So that's what we're going to do. It means that my Christmas Eve Mass was canceled because the church where I was supposed to celebrate it has no live stream. So they canceled it. That was fireworks. They also canceled fireworks, which is a big tradition in the Netherlands. Usually the entire month of December, the only thing you hear outside are fireworks for some reason, even though it's only allowed on New Year's Eve. But it's now illegal to have to fire fireworks and to have them in your possession, because it also creates every year a lot of accidents. And since most of our hospitals are already overloaded and personnel is overworked, they don't want to put that extra strain. But there are always some young people that are buying stuff illegally, and then when they think there's no police, they'll fire it off. So if you hear some fireworks in the background, it's just the unruly youth here in the village. So that frees up my Christmas Eve. I was a little bit sad that of course, I would have loved to celebrate Christmas Eve in a regular parish setting, but the downside of that was that I couldn't do an international Mass on Christmas Eve. But now that one parish Mass has been canceled, we have decided to do a live stream on Christmas Eve. And we're even going to work together with the local community here. So there's going to be a choir, there's going to be an organ, there's going to be music. We're going to sing songs. We picked all the melodies that are that are used in many other countries, so that even if you don't understand some of the words, you still recognize the melody. So we really are trying to make it super, I don't know, cozy, comforting. And then we came up with another idea, which I'm very excited about, and you'll undoubtedly see me post about that later on. We have the idea to light the church only with candles. Not just because of that looks pretty, which I think it will, but we're going to make it symbolic. So we're going to invite people to sponsor a candle for someone in their own personal life that has made the world a little bit lighter this year. So instead of focusing on all the doom and gloom, we literally want Christmas Eve to be this celebration of the light that we bring to each other, that we bring to the world in the footsteps of the light of Christ. And also, I think, ultimately moved by his light and by the Holy Spirit, who makes us a light for other people. And so I hope that a lot of people locally and maybe even the international community will join in that initiative, and that we can light it. Every candle will symbolize a person that will be at least symbolically present during that Mass. And I think it would be a wonderful way, even though we have to celebrate this in lockdown and no one can be present except for the ones who are celebrating or doing the liturgy and doing the technical aspects of it, that we can still have all these candles reminding us of the fact that we are a very vibrant, beautiful, loving, caring community. So anyway, those were my ideas for Christmas. But it is going to be a very, very strange time. This is going to last until mid-January, I think, until the 19th, and then they're going to re-evaluate, see if it really has helped, this lockdown. This is also going to be quite a puzzle for my work, because I have to start filming, not immediately, but in a while. I have to pick up the pace again. But if everyone is in lockdown, everything is in lockdown, it's always difficult to work and to find people that feel safe enough to be interviewed, etc. We'll see. We'll find a solution. Then, of course, we got the sad news yesterday. I'm recording this on Friday, December 18th. We got the news yesterday that Jeremy Bulloch, who is the British actor who played the first Boba Fett in the original trilogy, died yesterday at the age of 75. And that made everyone sad, even though, not everyone will have known that he played Boba Fett, because, of course, it's a masked character. But Jeremy was very well known for his loyalty to the fans. From the early days, he went to all the conventions, and he just liked it. Was a very British, kind, friendly, very polite guy. Always took time for everyone. Never really displayed any, impatience or anything. So he was very much loved by the fans. And even though later on, of course, he was replaced by other actors taking on the role of Boba Fett, until now, even in The Mandalorian, he was still a fan favorite. I met him twice, actually. The first time was in 1999 in Dallas during a sci-fi convention, or the Sci-Fi Expo, which was organized in the run-up to the premiere of The Phantom Menace. And I happened to be in the United States specifically for that premiere. It's hard to imagine, but back in the days, those movies would get a staggered release. So there was almost no internet back then. Sharing videos or sharing movies over the internet was completely non-existent. So companies would often premiere a movie in one country, and then sometimes months later in other parts of the world. That also had to do with the distribution. Of course, these movies were distributed on real celluloid film. They were not distributed digitally like right now. So in order to save money, they would sometimes do a premiere in one country, and then when the majority of theaters stopped showing the movie, they would literally ship the reels to Europe or to other countries so they could use the reels there for the premiere. So for The Phantom Menace, the premiere was going to be like 3 or 4 months later only. And back then I was doing a lot on the internet. I had a very big fan site, Star Wars fan site called the Virtual Edition, in which I try to kind of guess the story, and I make my own Photoshop pictures, etc. So I basically tried to reconstruct, based on all the rumors that I heard, what the movie would be about. And so I had a pretty large following back then. So several people invited me to come over to the United States, and that's how I made the trip. And stayed in San Francisco first. Got to visit Skywalker Ranch, which was pretty cool. And then I went to... there was no Star Wars Celebration back then. That was later. Or was it? No. I'm starting to doubt now. No, yes, there was also a Star Wars Celebration, the first one in Denver. So I went to that one. And then from there, I went to Dallas, to Texas. And that's where I actually saw the premiere. And there was this convention. And so, long story, just to tell you that a lot of the actors were there. Kenny Baker was there. Who else was there? Some of the smaller characters. Jeremy Bulloch was there. Billy D. Williams was there. Didn't make a very good impression on me. He was very, I don't know, he didn't seem to enjoy being there. And he only would spend time with the fans if they would pay money for him, for his signature, etc. So, there was some grumbling among the fans. This was in the early days of Star Wars fandom. So nowadays it's all very regulated, but back then you could just walk up to the people behind the booths, and even though they were signing, you could still chat with them and take a picture and whatnot. Peter Mayhew was there with his wife, and I even had dinner with them with a few other Star Wars friends. And I constantly was pinching myself, like, I can't believe I'm here. I can't believe I'm right there. These actors that I have admired for my entire life, they're talking to me. They just ask me what my name is. And then I remember that Jeremy Bulloch, I wanted his signature because I was already a big Boba Fett fan. So I wanted to have that nice photo and then with his dedication. And I was so stunned. I walked up to his booth and there was no one there. There were a lot of other people. Maybe it was because Billy D. Williams was also signing, so people were lining up for him. He was so popular back then. And so Jeremy Bulloch had a lot of time. He just sat there. I have nothing to do. So we had a chat for, I don't know, like 20 minutes. And he was so kind. And of course I was a bit of an alien there because I came from the Netherlands. So he was, being from the UK, it was like, okay, another European here. That is so great. And I'd just been ordained. So I was a priest, so he asked about that. And it was such a different person compared to the role that he played. But it was fun. I don't even think that we talked much about Star Wars. It was just a conversation. I don't remember much of it, but just it was as if I had known him for years. And I really that was one of the highlights of my time in the US. Also, another encounter that I remember was walking up to Gary Kurtz, who was the producer of A New Hope and some of the other movies. And again, that was like an hour-long conversation. There were a few other of my friends were there too, and they talked about their friendship with Coppola and George Lucas, and we got all that like first-hand information and all the anecdotes. Nowadays, that's stuff that you read in books and you see them, in directors' commentaries on the DVDs. But back then, we didn't have any of that. So I was like soaking it in. It's like, oh, I hope I remember all these details and these cool anecdotes, because it was so amazing to have someone who had been involved in the production of something that I regarded almost as important as the Bible. You know, it was like, oh man, it was unbelievable. And what struck me with Jeremy was that he was so modest, and of course, he had only been on set of The Empire Strikes Back for a day or something like that. It was almost nothing. So he was still getting used to all the fan admiration. You have to keep in mind that this was the first revival of Star Wars after decades of no Star Wars whatsoever, no fan activity. So he was still looking around like, I can't believe all these people want my autograph. And I've only been in a movie for, 30 seconds? He was like... But that's what I love about these fans, he said, and they're all so kind, and wow. Yeah, I've had only good experiences with Star Wars actors, and maybe it was also because this was in the early days of Star Wars fandom, when it really felt there was no bitterness, there was nothing of that hypercritical attitude that you see nowadays. And still, as an older Star Wars fan, I look at all these younger people just bombing everything they don't like. And it's like, when I was a younger Star Wars fan, Star Wars was always good. There was nothing that we didn't enjoy. Even the most, in hindsight, maybe not the best novels or comics, or we couldn't care less. It was Star Wars. We had been deprived from Star Wars for years and years and years. So anything Star Wars was good. And we would come back, like, please, sir, can I have some more? and so if I see all the entitled behavior of Star Wars fans nowadays, I'm like, oh, guys, you don't know how to appreciate Star Wars. In my days, every grain of Star Wars was secret, and now you're being spoiled. You don't deserve Star Wars. I don't know who I'm channeling here, but maybe Scotty. Beam these fans up from here, Scotty. Anyway, and then years and years and years later, I get to meet Jeremy Bulloch again. This time, it was in Utrecht. And Utrecht is a city not far from where I currently live. And this was around the Last Jedi release. So I'm not sure if it was before or after the premiere. So I'm on the short list of Star Wars fans in the Netherlands that are a little bit more high profile, being on TV and being a priest, and then being a Star Wars fan. So I get often invited to Star Wars events. So I'd been to the premiere, and then there was this Star Wars experience. What was it called? Anyway, it was this big Star Wars exposition with the costumes and the models. It was so cool. I went there with my nephews, and we were invited for the opening ceremony. And a lot of my friends of the Dutch garrison were, they put on their costumes, and they had this big entrance with stormtroopers and Darth Vader, and then, of course, the guest, the VIP of the day, and that was Jeremy Bulloch, who would open the exposition, and then there was this guy, one of the people who had organized it. He walked up to me and he said, "Father Roderick, come with me. We're going upstairs." And so we go upstairs, and there's this, VIP reception room, and he's like. He introduced me to Jeremy Bulloch. He said, "This is Father Roderick, and he's a priest from the Netherlands, and he's a massive Star Wars fan, and I'm pretty sure that he just loves to just say hi." And so that's what I did. And of course, this was years and years after. Like, that was in 2017, so that was like 18 years after Dallas. But I did mention the Dallas convention. And I, of course, did not expect him to remember me at all. That was like a 2-day event, and he must have seen thousands of people. But he did remember the convention. And so he was like, yeah, I remember that was one of the first conventions in the US that I went to. And it was Star Wars was all very, almost low-key compared to now. And but everyone was so friendly. And he'd been suffering from Parkinson's disease for a couple of years. So you could tell he was very quickly fatigued. But he took the time to chat a little bit with me. I think his wife was there too. It was also kind of managing him a little bit. Super kind. Also very nice conversation. It all felt very much like we're not on stage, so we can just be normal. Like we're just entre nous. No need for any. How'd you say that? We can just peel off the layers and just be ourselves. And it was almost a relief for them that we also behaved just like regular people. And so I took a few selfies with Jeremy, and then he was pretty tired. So I think he just went to the hotel and then back. And turns out it was one of his last appearances. So soon after that, I think I read somewhere that he would no longer go to conventions because of his health. And right around the same time, of course, Peter Mayhew also got worsened health-wise and died. And then, of course, recently we've got David Prowse, who also died. It is, it's just the way life is. These people are in their 70s, sometimes even almost in their 80s. So that generation of actors is going to pass away, and the new generation will follow in their footsteps. The only difference, I think, nowadays is that actors that get involved in Star Wars, they're smarter, I think, and the world has changed, and so they will diversify their portfolio, and they will certainly prevent themselves from being typecast as, oh, that's that Star Wars girl or that Star Wars guy. And so you see a lot of these actors doing whatever they can to do what Harrison Ford did as one of the only actors back then, try to get other roles and try to be known not just for Star Wars. So otherwise you're doomed. You have to go to all these conventions to make some money, and then that's what people will remember. But this old generation, like Jeremy Bulloch, he's been in one Doctor Who episode. He's been in a James Bond movie. It's very small roles. But he made his living from being Boba Fett and going to all these conventions. Which, of course, is I think, if you really embrace the fans, which he clearly did, not everyone is able to do that, but he liked doing what he did. That's a good way to make sure that you get some return on investment. And for him, that was always like the big surprise of his life, is that such a tiny role, which didn't pay anything. They paid him a couple of $100 and that was it. And there was almost no acting involved. However, maybe a bit more than a couple of $100, but it was almost nothing compared with, of course, what his later appearances would pay. I thought that tiny, small role that anyone could have gotten, he was just lucky, he felt, resulted in him basically being still loved and admired by fans from all over the world up until this very moment. And if you see the outpour of sympathy on the internet now that he's died, it's heartwarming. People can be kind, even though Star Wars fans can be vicious, but they can also be very kind. Maybe it's not the same Star Wars fans, I don't know. But it's good. It's good to see that even from something that is objectively, of course, a sad event, natural event, but still sad if someone that you like passes away, it has an upside. It has a very positive side effect, and that is bringing people together and maybe touching the humanity instead of the entitlement. I think Star Wars needs to be more here and less here. That's what I think. It's a positive story. It's a story about hope. And, well, my hope is that fans will learn over time to reflect that in their behavior. All right, enough preaching. Let's move on.
Not like movies.
They're predictable. Like, the guy gets the girl, and that kid sees dead people, and Darth Vader is Luke's father.
Not liking movies is like not liking puppies.
They're fine. I just get bored and never make it to the end.
You know, you need a movie education. You need a movication. I'm gonna give it to you.
Since we haven't talked for a while, of course I need to briefly touch upon the biggest news of the past 2 weeks, and that is the new Disney Plus lineup. Disney Plus clearly going in overdrive, in hyperspace right now. And I think Disney Plus was launched exactly at the right moment. Nobody could have known how important Disney Plus would become so quickly. Of course, they had an idea, Iger especially. He knew that they had to make that jump to digital distribution and get to the homes of their customers. But he, of course, could have never guessed that all the other sources of revenue, especially the theme parks, which are a very important part of the revenue of the Disney Corporation, all that would end with COVID, or at least temporarily end with COVID. And so they have heavily invested, and this is something that no one saw coming, at least I didn't. I think most of us didn't, is that they instead of just sitting back and waiting for COVID to go away, they just accelerated. There's like, okay, we need to build upon the success of The Mandalorian. We need to build on our catalogs, and let's just go full force on this. And man, did they get everyone excited with their announced lineup. Of course, in a small, little remark somewhere hidden in between all that fantastic news, was also the announcement that they would raise the price. When they introduced Disney Plus, they deliberately, of course, set the price much lower than Netflix. And I'm not sure about Amazon. Amazon has always been rather cheap, at least here in the Netherlands. But they definitely wanted to undercut Netflix. And Netflix had gone through a number of price hikes over time. So people were kind of on the fence. Do I want to keep 2 or 3 streaming services? And then when Disney came into the market with, I think, $7 a month or something like that, it was a no-brainer, especially for Star Wars and Marvel fans. And so now that they have hooked us with The Mandalorian and with all the, it is a great service. It is really good quality. There's not as much on there as Netflix, but, it's all Disney, so it's special. Netflix, there's a lot of garbage. They have a lot, but it's always a bit hit and miss. And you can also see that from the massive amount of shows that get canceled after just 1 or 2 seasons, which is very frustrating. So, but Disney is more curated, but also more essential. You can't get it anywhere else. And so now that they have us, of course, they want to keep us. They don't want people to now unsubscribe and then take another subscription when the 3rd season of The Mandalorian starts. And so that's why they announce all these series, which of course will be distributed in a staggered way so that you have to stay subscribed to watch it all. So let me just briefly go over that huge list. Of course, I can't really go into detail about all these announcements. Let me see. I had a list somewhere in my browser with the entire lineup, because this is not just Star Wars. Of course, Star Wars is the main thing that I was interested in, but there are also a lot of cool movies and series that, well, let me just read this. This is a list. I will link to it in the show notes. It lists everything that was announced. So there's going to be Monsters at Work, based on Pixar's Monsters, Inc. That's probably for kids. It's fun, but then I'm going to skip a few that I don't know what there are and not really interested. Beauty and the Beast prequel, live action show with Luke Evans and Josh Gad reprising their roles from the recent musical remake. Could be interesting. I don't know. Sounds interesting. Turner and Hooch, probably a remake. Oh, Willow. I was very excited about Willow, a new adaptation of the fantasy movie created by George Lucas. And it will, I think, be a sequel. I'm not sure. But Willow was a really cool movie, kind of still a bit in the shadows of Star Wars. and the Ewok movies. But it was a lovely story. And the special effects back then were really groundbreaking. Now they look really old-fashioned, but the story as such, I think there is potential there. Zootopia Plus, I loved Zootopia. That's one of those animated classics that I can watch over and over again. So I'm excited that there will be more of Zootopia. Tiana from The Princess and the Frog will get her own series. That's cool. I hope it's going to be with music as well, because I love the music in Princess and the Frog. Moana, same thing, new series. I love that animated movie. I only watched it recently. Loved it. The Mighty Ducks, that's probably cool for a slightly younger generation than I am from. Pixar popcorn, Cars. That's probably going to just be the breadcrumb stuff that they've already been doing, so nothing too special. Then they have what they call unscripted shows on Disney Plus, basically documentaries and stuff. So stuff that is not. Oh, one thing I hope they will not bring back is that horrific, shockingly horrific Muppets Now series. Have you watched that? Muppets Now? It's horrendous. Oh, I so feel like an old man in a theater yelling at the stage. It's horrible. Oh, it's so over-scripted. It's long in the tooth. There's no humor whatsoever. It's one of the worst things you can do to something great like the Muppets. Oh, I'm not going to talk about it. It's too... My doctor won't allow it. It's not good for my heart. But man, was it bad. Anyway. Unscripted shows. Let's see if there's anything in there. No, nothing. Mickey Mouse documentary. And the magic of Animal Kingdom. That may be interesting. The rest, I'm not sure. Ink and Paint, the story of women who worked in Disney's classic animated films. Yeah, they did a number of these making-of type of documentaries. Of course, they've got access to all the archives of Disney, so that's cool. National Geographic shows. I haven't really checked out any of the National Geographic documentaries because there's just too much other cool stuff that I haven't seen yet. So National Geographic, I know it's there and I appreciate it and it's lovely made and everything, but I feel like I always have something more important to watch than the National Geographic stuff. And then upcoming movies. There's quite a bit of cool stuff here. Soul, which is a Pixar movie, which will be on Disney Plus. No theatrical release as far as I know. Will debut on Christmas Day. And it's about the afterlife. So that's going to be interesting, at least for me as a priest. Raya and the Last Dragon. Could be interesting. Will first be available via Premier Access. Oh, by the way, also they announced that there will be like a separate division or a section on Disney Plus called Stars, which will feature like the stuff that is not for kids. And then they also bought a major stake in Hulu, I think. So that's going to be interesting. They're going to diversify. There's going to be more on Disney Plus for the same. Well, of course, there's a price hike, but there will be even more than what they've announced. That's pretty cool. Aladdin spin-off. This time will center on the character of Prince Anders. Okay. I'm not so sure. I didn't really like the real-life version of Aladdin. Hocus Pocus 2. A lot of people are excited about that. Sister Act 3 with Whoopi Goldberg coming back. Will it still work? I don't know. Sister Act 1 was funny. But I don't know. Feels like they're pushing it a little bit here. 3 Men and a Baby. That I don't know how many remakes they've done. This was originally a French movie, which was remade then, and now they're going to be doing a remake of a remake. Meh. Some sports stuff. What else? Pinocchio, a live-action version of the animated classic. Directed, this is cool, by Robert Zemeckis. Doodle-doo. Of course, the director of Back to the Future. So, I don't know about a real-life version of Pinocchio. Pinocchio is pretty dear to a lot of people because it's just one of those classics that's almost too sacred to touch. But it's Robert Zemeckis. I'm conflicted about that one. And then I'm super excited about this one. A sequel to Enchanted, which is maybe my favorite Disney movie. I'm not kidding you. And Enchanted, I saw that in theaters, and I just fell in love with everything in that movie. It was bright, cheerful. It showed like a romanticized version of Manhattan. It had cheerful songs, dance. It was like, it was fantastic. I still put that soundtrack on almost on a weekly basis. I love that movie. And it's like I'm a sucker for romantic movies, so it's also crazy good. And then the sequel is going to be Disenchanted. It took them like 10 years to make a sequel. I hope the music is going to be just as good as the first one. And I hope we will not feel disenchanted after seeing it. I mean, they're giving already some material, some ammunition to the reviewers by calling it Disenchanted. And then Peter Pan and Wendy. That's interesting. With Jude Law as Captain Hook. I don't know about that one. We'll have to wait and see. Then, Star Wars. Star Wars Andor. A TV show centering on Cassian Andor before the events of Rogue One. Now, of course, that's a must-see. That was the first series next to The Mandalorian that they announced. Maybe even before The Mandalorian was announced, they were talking about Andor. It took them quite a while to get going with that. But that's pretty cool. Obi-Wan Kenobi, of course, with Ewan McGregor. They're going to shoot this anytime now. I think like early in the new year they'll start filming that. That's just going to be one season. It's going to be like a contained 6-episode series or something like that. So it had better be good. You can't do a second season to repair if it doesn't work. But, of course, it was delayed, so maybe with a bit of extra time and rewriting, they can make it work. This one is a bit strange. The Acolyte, a show about the shadowy secrets and the emerging dark side powers in the final days of the High Republic era. Okay, we don't know much about the High Republic. That's the whole thing that I talked about a couple of months ago. That was also postponed. You know, this new time period in the Star Wars canon that is unexplored. It's still, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. We don't know anything about that time, nor about the characters. So is this going to work if you don't have references? That's always a tricky thing. If you want to introduce something new to an existing fan base, will they eat it up? Will they, Mandalorian is simple. It's the cool Boba Fett-like armor. It takes place in the time frame that we're familiar with. It features a lot of the characters and aliens and stormtroopers that we know. So it's easy to relate to that. But if you completely reboot, it's still Star Wars, but undoubtedly we'll have, still a lot of things that we recognize, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. It's a risk. The Bad Batch, of course, that was just a spin-off of the Clone Wars. I guess it's just going to be just as good as the Clone Wars. So good. Star Wars Ahsoka, that was a huge surprise. It's a spin-off, the first spin-off of The Mandalorian, featuring Rosario Dawson playing Ahsoka. Which explains why she only got such a small role in The Mandalorian, which was a bit weird and wasn't enough. Definitely not enough. Now we know that it was just set up for this spin-off series. So it could be good. I'm not yet completely convinced by Rosario Dawson because she plays, of course, a very mature Ahsoka. But also in her behavior, her character is so different from the Ahsoka that we know from the Clone Wars. So, and it's obvious she's no longer a young girl, but we don't know this older Ahsoka very well. We've seen her, of course, in Star Wars Rebels, but I don't know. I still think they're going to do a good job because it's still linked to the Clone Wars, which was excellent. Then, Star Wars Rangers of the New Republic, another spin-off from The Mandalorian. I don't know much about this one, Rangers of the New Republic, but intriguing. Star Wars Lando. Now, everybody, of course, is like, oh, Lando. Is this going to be a a modified sequel to the Solo movie. I would love it if they could continue that storyline, because it felt like Solo deserved better. It didn't work for some reason, but it was still a good story. And there were a lot of things that were set up, and I think we need to have resolution, and not just in the form of a novel or a comic book. That's not enough. So maybe. And Lando, of course, they're going to bring back the Millennium Falcon. How cool is that? Oh, yes. Unless this is going to be a prequel. Or is it going to be a sequel? Because the Falcon was actually quite damaged at the end of Solo. We'll see. We'll have to wait and see. I'm saying it's probably going to be a sequel to Solo. Rangers of the New Republic. Already talked about that. Sorry. Visions. Short movies by anime creators of Japan. Yeah, they've done stuff like that before. And a droid story, animated series focusing on a new droid mentored by R2-D2 and C-3PO. Yeah, whatever. Not my thing. All right, Marvel also announced, this is going to be a long segment, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. That's a no-brainer. That's going to be good, and that's a must-see. WandaVision, very strange trailer so far. Interesting, focusing on Scarlet Witch and Vision. It looks different, and that's what I like about it. It's something new, something we haven't seen before. Loki, that even made me more exciting, that trailer. Wow, that was so intriguing. Like, what's happening here? What's the story? Nobody knows, but it's Loki, so it's already my favorite. From all the trailers, I'm thinking, oh, I must see that one. Hawkeye, yeah. Not my favorite character, but okay. Miss Marvel, I'm excited about that one because I really like the character of Miss Marvel in the comic book series. Moon Knight, the story of Mark Spector, a dark vigilante with moon-based powers. Okay. She-Hulk. Okay. Always thought that I think it's a lawyer in real life, and then she turns into the Hulk, and okay. We'll have to wait and see. Marvel What If. I like that. It's an animated series. If certain events had happened differently. There's a Star Wars comic book series that I reviewed on Father Roderick to the Max, which does the same thing. I love that. There's also a Star Trek comic book series that does the same thing, with old classic Star Trek episodes, then but happening in the J.J. Abrams universe. Very interesting. I always like these what if parallel worlds ideas. Secret Invasion. Samuel L. Jackson is back as Nick Fury, who has to deal with an invasion of shape-changing alien Skrulls. Okay, cool. Jackson, so it's cool. Ironheart, female inventor, creating the next generation version of Iron Man's armor. Armor Wars, more Iron Man stuff. Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. Late 2022. They're already pitching it now. So I was like, oh, we're going to get another holiday special? Only in 2022. I love Guardians of the Galaxy, so I'm sure it will be hilarious. I Am Groot, series of animated shorts focusing on Groot. Cool. Then, some more movies that are going to be added. Mary Poppins Returns. I love that movie. And The Lone Ranger, which was already on Netflix and wasn't worth watching on Netflix. So anyway, that was it. Wow. Some great times ahead. I'm excited, and I'm sure you are too. All right, and with that, it is time to move over quickly to the Peculiar Munch.
Catholics rock!
Here on the Peculiar Munch, we're always happy to tell you everything you always wanted to know about Catholics and priests and bishops and popes, but you're afraid to ask.
Catholics can be a peculiar bunch. No meat on Friday.
Oh, meat? What do they eat? Light bulbs?
So today I want to answer a question from one of my followers on Twitter, I think, or on Facebook. I think this was a question asked to me on Twitter.
Man, you guys got more crazy rules than Blockbuster Video.
Kevin Jones asks, hey, Father Roderick, can you say anything about your thoughts about if people should attend Mass in person during the pandemic, especially in areas with a high infection rate? What might you do in a high-risk area if you weren't a priest? Now, this, of course, is for some Catholics a very pertinent question, because the situation all over the world is very different from one place to another. In some countries, the government has forbidden the churches to open. So the lockdown was a total lockdown. It all depends, of course, on your constitution and on the degree of religious freedom in your country. That is very well protected in the Netherlands, thankfully so, but also has a downside. We had some Protestant churches nearby here in the towns a little bit more to the east. They're part of our Dutch Bible Belt, where, going to church is something you basically have to do to save your soul. And these are very, very much God-fearing people, with the emphasis on fear. And so, at least I'm a Catholic, so sometimes I'm a little bit sensitive to all that doom and gloom in some Christian circles. But anyway, for them, going to church is absolutely necessary and vital. And so even though most of the churches were restricting attendance to 30 people and were putting in place so many rules and regulations, some of these bigger Christian mega churches just opened the doors and everybody was sitting next to each other. They would sing psalms and everything. No masks, no social distancing. You see stuff like that happening also in the United States in some circles, but man, we've seen some huge spikes of infections and a lot of fallout from those events. And so, of course, in society, there's been a lot of pushback. Why do these churches get this exception? And they're endangering these churches with their old-fashioned beliefs are endangering the health with their fairy tales, our health, and they're infecting the country and whatnot. So there's... but there are also countries where, the rules were so strict, and then it would be very unfair that, for instance, movie theaters would be able to open. You could gather with hundreds of people on a market, but no one could go to church. Like, imagine if you live in Rome. The churches have been closed for weeks and weeks and weeks. Whereas other places, people could gather. Well, I'm always, having been infected with COVID-19 myself and experiencing the fallout of that disease, I'm still not recovered. I'm still having a lot of pretty severe consequences of this infection. I'm very much in favor of a lockdown and a total lockdown. Actually, our bishops have ruled that it's not necessary to close the churches entirely. So only on Christmas Eve, as I mentioned. But all the rest of the Sunday masses are still going to be, with 30 people in church. I think it's a risk. And 30 people is also nothing. If you only allow 30 people to attend Mass, you're still shutting out 90% of the people. And it has another side effect that I've noticed, and that is that in some parishes, they take it for granted. They just, the churches are open, people can go to church. So we don't have to do streaming video. We don't even have to, even if we have a camera, we don't need to address people at home. We don't publicize that there is a live stream. I'm thinking it's nonsense. We're making the same mistake that we've been making for 40 years now. And that is thinking, as long as people come to church, we don't have to go outside. We don't have to evangelize and reach out and meet people where they are. And so it's of course a fake, in a certain way, a fake community. You only see a small portion, and you forget about all these people that do not dare to go to church. So I'm like, what's the difference between 30 and no one going to church? At least you would even the playfield. So I'm more, think I would be more for a total lockdown. Especially because Sunday obligation, which is an important thing in the Catholic Church, has been lifted. Of course, the Catholic Church does not want people to be sick and to die or to infect other people, endanger other people. Well, since I've been infected in church during the rule that only 30 people could come to church, I've been infected by a parishioner or a sacristan, or we don't know, someone who didn't have symptoms, asymptomatic, but he was still able to transmit it to me, and I got seriously ill. And I got sick in September. It's now almost the end of the year, and I'm still not very sick, but this is going to take a couple more months at least, and I'm following therapy and everything. So that's a pretty high price I had to pay for the bishops opening up the churches. Because, of course, if these churches had been closed, I would not have been infected, at least not there. So even the smallest amount of risk is still a risk and could have huge consequences. And I wonder if that is what God wants us to do. My attitude is always a positive one. Like, you can't stop the world from breaking. We live in a broken world. Things do go wrong. We will have famine and wars and earthquakes and whatnot, and sometimes maybe global diseases, pandemics like this one. But God always works with us to build his church. And so we often think that there is only one way. We're very dogmatic sometimes. We're a bit like the old-fashioned Mandalorians. This is the way. Which is, really? I mean, I would like to have a theological discussion with the Mandalorians about that, if I were a Mandalorian myself. I'm like, is that really the way? Do you really have to keep your mask on so you are still a true believer? You know, or is the mask a symbol of something else, and is it still relevant today? And I don't know. Should you go in hiding? And anyway, I'm not going to venture into Star Wars territory again, because then the show will never end. But I hope you get my gist. I think we are often underestimating the creativity of the Holy Spirit and the way in which the church has always continued to grow against the odds, against the circumstances. We're a church of trouts. We go upstream. And if we go downstream too long, we don't survive. We forget what we lose our strength. So I don't know. I think this is an opportunity. That's why I'm still investing so much on in this international mass that I'm streaming. I know that I don't have the bandwidth or the energy to really expand that and advertising it, and so it's a small community, but it's not about the numbers. This is about, I think, the experience that there is a real community there, and I think that those gatherings on Sunday are really touching people and helping them, because that's the feedback that we get. So who cares if it's 80 people or 200 or 2,000? As long as something happens, that is, and I'm just one priest. There are so many other parishes and priests all over the world, and bishops and popes. Well, one pope and one emeritus pope. But anyway, so I just have to do what I can given the circumstances, and I hope that priests all over the world will do the same. But I'm always a bit hesitant when people start to. I understand where it comes from. In countries where people don't feel they're free to express their faith or make choices based on their faith, where they're discriminated against. Sometimes the governments are a little bit too rash and too black and white. On the other hand, I was always like, don't forget that there is a strength in the church that will survive this. And so what is a lockdown of a couple of months? If you look at the church that has been there for more than 2,000 years. Sometimes I'm thinking, people of little faith, is this the time to start a culture war about this? Or is it also professing your faith? If you show your solidarity, if you pray at home, if you follow Mass through stream, of course that is, for a number of Catholics, that is a form of suffering, of deprivation. But we do that deliberately during Lent, and then we appreciate it so much more when we can again eat and drink and whatnot. Why don't we approach this from a more spiritual attitude? This is a difficult time for the church as well. Yes, we feel confined, we don't feel free, but that has been the case throughout religious history. Look at the Old Testament; it's full of stories of people that had to live for decades in exile and were not free to openly profess their faith. It has happened during the Reformation when Catholics had to hide in houses and build chapels that nobody could tell from the outside that it was churches, because they were not allowed to have churches for centuries. We survived that. So is it worth it to fight this fight, or should we put our energy into the needs of the world in these dark times? I don't know. But you know me. I'm not that much of a culture warrior. I'd like to be a bringer of hope. But then again, there is something to say for all of that. Oh my gosh, it is already an hour into this episode, and I have my book section, which is huge because I've been trying to finish my Goodreads book reading challenge, and I'm almost there. I read 44 books now. 44 or 46? Anyway, I'm almost there. I only have to read one book every 2 days from now on, and then I'll be able to do what I promised myself to do, and that is to read one book every week. So I've been catching up, and I wanted to give you a huge breakdown of my reading list, but I'll have to postpone that to next week. I've already read the book, so there's no urgency for this. What can I do? Well, I'm going to wrap up. I also have some stuff that I wanted to share with you about my iPad. I ordered a Pencil 2, and I'm still debating on an iPad case. I need something to protect this device, but a lot of these cases are either expensive or bulky and heavy. So if you have any tips about your favorite case for the iPad, I'm open for suggestions. We'll talk much more next week. Thanks for listening. And for those of you that are patrons, over at patreon.com/Father Roderick, we'll talk more in Father Roderick to the max. Take care, and I'll see you next week. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was episode number 1. What time is it? 11:40. Oh my gosh. I should not be doing this. It's way too late. I'm going to I still have energy, and it's just because I slept an hour after dinner. I'm just going through your comments here. Oh, you guys have been chatting up a storm. Okay, now I'm reading through all the fake spoilers for the last Mandalorian episode. It is good. I haven't seen it. Am I fully recovered from COVID? No, not at all. It's getting worse. I'm following occupational therapy, and I have to get what's it called? Ergo therapy as well in the new year, but there's so many people suffering from side effects from COVID that they don't have time for me right now. But I've already learned a lot. I'm going to talk about that in the Father Roderick to the Max show, which I will record live. Why not? Let's see. Adam says, "Good to see you looking. You're looking well." Yeah, that's kind of the treacherous. Well, the treacherous. That's a problem. You don't see that I'm actually not recovered at all. What you don't see are sometimes days that I cannot do anything. You can't tell from my face that my heart rate right now is okay. That's not too bad. It's 83. But if I walk up the stairs, just one flight of stairs, my heartbeat is 125, which usually would be my heartbeat while running a marathon. Just goes to show I'm not there yet at all. The Titanic sings at the end. I'll see if I can record something. What are my thoughts on the Cathars? I recorded a video, actually, in one of the castles of the Cathars. It may still be up on my YouTube page somewhere. You probably have to dig through all my old videos. Oh, Angela's hubby has been diagnosed with leukemia. That's sad news. Definitely be praying for him. I hope it's going to be a mild form with, slow progression. But that's always scary. Already talked about the extraordinary form. I'm not disappointing you. That's good. I've seen YouTubers putting up timers for reactions so viewers could follow along. Oh, wow. That's a cool idea. Turn down the sound or put on... I don't know. I'm going to watch it with friends. That's a problem. I don't want to rob them. I don't want to distract them too much by filming myself. But we'll find a way. Zebu is here from Hungary. That's cool. Tony wants to know where I'm from. The Netherlands. Let's see. Tubers? Potatoes? Oh, really? Is that a nickname for potatoes? Tubers? Yeah, the audio base. I have had these jingles for 15 years now. Well, not these specifically, but I have used jingles from the very first day that I started podcasting in 2005. What do you think about euthanasia? Spain is going to prove it. Yeah, I heard that. I think it's a defeat of our capacity to care for the elderly and for the people without hope. It's shown time and again that if you really take care of someone, oftentimes the will to die disappears. But euthanasia is often a cop-out, I think, of society to get rid of a problem. Even with the consent of people don't always know what they want. A lot of congregations in the U.S. have been hosting super spreading events. Yes, we saw that. Politicians also. Marty visited Bishop Sheen's tomb in Peoria, Illinois. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, did you hear? I forgot to mention that, but one of the priests who was involved in his canonization process has died at the age of 57. Was a good guy. I met him in Rome several times. I'm glad that some of you enjoy... are happy about the Christmas Eve celebration. I was like, I so want to celebrate that with the international community. It's such a special evening. But I couldn't because, well, parish comes first, but then that's all going to change. So I'm super excited, and I already had a meeting with Inge and Henk about it, and so we're going to really make it special, visually also. We're going to do whatever we can, and it's going to be, we're going to have songs and music, and it's going to be awesome. I'm looking forward to it. I couldn't be happier. Scotland's also going to ban fireworks, Jim says. Although you really have the space for fireworks in Scotland. I could do a Zoom meeting to facilitate doing your TV show interviews. Yeah, but that's not accepted. There are some standards for television production, and Zoom is just not going to cut it. But I also see it as a creative challenge to come up with ideas. I was at the first celebration. Yes, I experienced all the downpour and all the mud. Yes, I was there. I have the photos to prove it. I've been standing in the rain talking with Anthony Daniels. And I was waiting in line for, I don't know for what. I think it was one of the bigger, let's see, hold on. I was going to Google something. We were waiting in line, so everything on the terrain was in tents, big white tents. This was on an old army airfield. Rain was pouring down. The weather was horrible. So some of these bigger events, sometimes hosted by Anthony Daniels, and so, where you had to wait in line. You couldn't get tickets or anything. So you just waited for hours. And at one point, Warwick Davis arrives with his wife and their firstborn. So they just had their first baby. And so Warwick Davis was pushing the cart. And I was there with a couple of high-profile Star Wars fans. So they had already met Warwick Davis at other conventions or whatever. So he stopped and just chatted with us for about, I don't know how long. It felt like an eternity. And again, I was standing there like, I'm talking to Warwick Davis. I'm talking to Warwick Davis. I'm like, he's right there. And he's talking about diapers. It was so cool. Oh my gosh. There was also, at one point, this was in Dallas, the guy, the actor, he also died, who plays Lobot. You know, the bald guy is just in one scene in Empire Strikes Back. He was there, very kind guy. Then you had Anthony Daniels. Daniels was great with fans during the conventions, but he did not mingle afterwards. So sometimes you would have these parties, but Anthony Daniels was never there. But Kenny Baker was often there, and would from Great Britain, so they would get pretty drunk. So I remember it was like a very dark bar somewhere. It was at the hotel where we were staying. A lot of the actors were staying there as well. And so there was a party. I don't know, organized it, and quite a few actors there. And I remember that Kenny Baker was completely. He really couldn't walk straight anymore. Who else was there? I'm trying to remember. Well, of course, and I met the what's his name? The boy who plays Anakin Skywalker. He was there with his family, and so I talked with his sister and with him also briefly. and with the parents. We also I talked with what's his name, the producer of Phantom Menace. It's late. We had a discussion about Darth Maul. I was there with a youth pastor, a Protestant youth pastor from the northern part of the U.S. And so he wanted to have our opinion about Darth Maul. He said, well, one of the things that they debated before they started filming, when they were still working on the pre-visualization, was they were afraid that there would be a religious backlash against the Darth Maul character because he was almost being portrayed as a devil. It was like, aren't we going to get in trouble with Catholics and Protestants? And so we basically reassured him. We said, no. I mean, sure, it's obviously inspired by the imagery around Satan, but, you know, he's a bad guy. It's not, Star Wars has always been very good at distinguishing between what's good and what's bad, light and dark, so I don't think there's a problem there. That was cool. Ray Park was great with the fans. Such a nice guy. So not what you expect. He was very athletic at the time, so he's doing some demonstrations on stage. What was the name of that? Was she Danish? The lady who plays Shmi Skywalker, so Anakin's mom, she was incredibly kind, completely overwhelmed. She had no idea that Star Wars was this big, so she had filmed her role, and only afterwards she discovered, like, oh, wait a minute, Star Wars is a thing. She did not realize that when they were filming it. So she was pretty overwhelmed. The guy who plays Jar Jar Binks, he was my favorite. Such a kind, funny guy. He was way funnier in real life than he was as Jar Jar Binks. He really didn't deserve the backlash that his role got. Yeah, he was my favorite. Gosh, there's so many stories to tell. I remember eating tortilla chips on a soggy magazine with cheese for breakfast, with cheese dripping into my elbow. Melted cheese. That was the only thing. It was the only stand that was open, and it was raining so hard that the container. It's just these weird things that you remember. It's crazy. And then there are a lot of stuff. There are a lot of things that I completely forgot. Fortunately, I took a lot of pictures. I still have a lot of those photos. Where are you guys? I've completely lost track of the chat. Okay. Could have recorded this. Could have been a show. Okay, where am I now? Slovakia. Have you ever visited Slovakia? No, I have not been in Slovakia. I've been in the area, but it's still on my list. Still remember walking past a bookstore, seeing the first Timothy Zahn book. Oh, yes. Oh, it was so good. I bought those in Amsterdam. I was like, oh, no, Star Wars novels? And I bought all 3 of them. They had been out for years, but this was pre-internet. So I had no idea that there was a revival of Star Wars going on. You do live stuff, Gildan wants to know. Yes, I do. I like to chat. Kenji Toro Gaming has seen my Battlefront 2 gameplays. You're braver than I thought. I'm really terrible at playing video games. I'm almost ashamed that I stream those live. I shouldn't be. Oh, boy. Will you play Cyberpunk 2077? Not anytime soon, of course. But I love what I've seen so far. It's cool. It's a shame that they weren't able to release a bug-free version. But I hope, usually they've got a pretty good track record for repairing bugs. So I'll just wait. I do that with almost any game. I just wait a year or 2 years, and then I play it, and I can pick it up for almost nothing. I'm not a big Twitch celebrity anyway, so I can afford to wait. Which new Star Wars series has you most intrigued? Lando, I would say. The Muppet Show now was a disgrace. Oh my gosh, it was so terrible. Horrific. History Channel is really terrible. That shouldn't even be allowed to be called History Channel because it's all sensationalism. Low on facts. Are you okay with horror films? Sure, I'm okay with them. I don't like them personally, but that's because I'm scared of everything. So it's not my genre. Let's see. What's my favorite Christmas song? I'm pretty secular, so I like it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas, chestnuts roasting on an open fire, all that cheesy 50s. Have yourself a merry little Christmas. That is my favorite song. The version sung by Sinatra. I think it's Sinatra who sings that. Ivan, thank you so much for the super chat. I appreciate it. Does watching Mass online count as going to church on Sundays for these times? It doesn't have to count because Sunday obligation has been lifted by the bishops almost worldwide. So there is no obligation to attend Mass. And of course, if it feeds your soul, then it's good. But, I personally don't think that God is there like, oh, he's got, 10 out of 10 for this Sunday. Ooh, he was not paying attention to the homily, so that's a 6 out of 10. And then he adds it all up and compares it to other. That's not how the Force works. No, but I think these internet masses are really helpful in this situation. And I've also discovered that it is kind of a low threshold entry point for people that would never go to a mass in real life. Maybe they don't even have a community where they live. And so it's a new venue for the church to form a community, for friendships to emerge, and for people to be inspired and to inspire each other. What's not to like? Rick McCallum. Yeah, Rick McCallum. He was a bit harsh, Rick. I always felt that he wasn't the right guy. Maybe he was very good as a producer, just to keep things in check, etc. But he just didn't feel like someone who was a true Star Wars fan, if you see what I mean. I mean, Kathleen Kennedy is a totally different caliber in a certain way. Like anyone who is involved now with Lucasfilm is so much more kind of fitting, I think, for what they make. You need to have a certain love for Star Wars. Otherwise, Rick McCallum was a bit of a, I don't know, he was very uptight. Margot says, I'm a bit of a liturgical snob, and your international masses are some of the most beautiful and surprisingly intimate liturgies I've ever experienced. That is kind. We try to, it's simplicity. I hope we're not going to scare you with our Christmas bonanza. Gorgi remembers my vlogs from Krakow. Yes. I'm at best. Yes. Paul says, it's funny you say the British like to drink. A lot of the pubs are closed at the moment. I'm sorry, I did not want to remind you of that. But I have seen that the Brits usually can stomach way more alcohol than most American friends I have. Judy Garland. Wait, what's the context of that? Not Judy Garland. Oh, the singer. Did she sing the original? Yeah, I'm just a sucker for the crooners. Sorry, that's what I discovered when I was in high school, and that's just part of my nostalgia, I guess. I knew all the Frank Sinatra songs by heart. Still know them. Don't tell anyone. Have you ever done a series on Harry Potter? Martine, you wouldn't believe me, but I have done 5 years of weekly podcasts on Harry Potter. They are not available anywhere, I suppose, because SQPN has branched off, and I don't think they have these old episodes online. But we went through all the books and all the movies on a weekly basis. I've done more Harry Potter than I've done Star Wars. It's hard to believe, but yep. It was called The Secrets of Harry Potter. I'll ask Inge if we still have copies of that show, because it was great. I brought in a lot of Harry Potter experts, and in the end, I just couldn't do it anymore, because these last books are so detailed, and I didn't have the time to prepare. I was doing a ton of things at the time. But yes, but I've never done a video series on Harry Potter, which is still on my bucket list. I would love to go to England and Scotland and film an entire documentary series on Harry Potter. I don't know how. I would like to do the same about Tolkien. And I just can't do it, because you can only do one thing at a time. And I've got my contract for the TV show with Dutch Broadcasting. But if that stops, if my contract doesn't get renewed at one point, then I will be doing. I want to do the same type of program, but then about the stuff that I really am passionate about. But that was years ago, Martine, so I don't blame you. Sandy wants to know, how do you explain dreams from recently departed loved ones? Well, it means they're still in your heart. And it could also, well, let's say the scientist in me says, I'm not a scientist, but says it's you processing everything. The mourning of missing that person. So your subconscious has to deal with that, which is a process that you can only do to a certain degree, consciously and intellectually. There's also the entire emotional process that your subconscious, which of course is very active when you dream, is involved in. So that is probably why people often dream of the people that are deceased. From a religious point of view, well, the Bible has stories, of course, about apparitions in dreams and stuff like that. We as Christians, we believe, of course, that the soul is immortal, and that even though the body dies, the soul is in God's love and is awaiting the day of the resurrection, where it will receive a new body and we will again be recreated in a certain way and still be us, of course, because the soul in at least in Thomist philosophy is the form of the body. So the soul and the body are interconnected, which means that even if we get a new body, it will still be formed by the soul in a certain way. Of course, it's very abstract stuff. We don't really have we can't imagine what that really means, but anyway. Harry Potter was big at the time that Star Wars was on hiatus. That's true. Thank God for Harry Potter. I so love that franchise. What do you think about Hayden Christensen returning? Yeah, it's cool. Very cool. Love it. Hopefully he'll get better lines than he had in the prequels. No blood miracle in Naples. Yeah, it's true. Doesn't always... So, I don't know what to think about that. So in Naples, they always say it's a bad omen when the blood does not liquefy. It's the blood of a saint, and it liquefies a couple of times each year. There's still no scientific explanation for that to happen, so it's still considered a miracle. But I'd say if it announces doom, then it's about a year late. Thanks for nothing. Evo has a few questions about the stream. Okay, sure. Next Thursday. Thursday is already Christmas. Oh, man. We're running out of time. Because I think they're going to do like a children's thing as well. But that's early in the evening. We'll figure it out. I was thinking the other day what you could film. How about the history of the monks brewing beer? Yeah, I've already done a few of those mini documentaries about beer brewing monks. What I'm always looking for is not really topics, but it's interesting people. So if I would do something about Harry Potter, I wouldn't try to do like an information type of show. But I would go look for interesting people that are passionate about Harry Potter and have a personal connection with the stories or whatever. I do the same with Star Wars. You know, I'm much more interested in the cosplayers than I am in the actors in a certain way, because the cosplayers often have a much bigger devotion for Star Wars than anyone that's involved in the production. But of course, if I can interview Dave Filoni, I'm not gonna skip that, of course. All right. It was good talking to you all. I'm going to go to bed. It is past midnight, and I should not be here, but it was great talking to you. Have a wonderful rest of your day, or a good start of your of the next day, and hopefully we'll stream some more in the weeks to come. And stay tuned for more info. Follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Father Roderick, for more information about the candles that we're going to use. And if you have a special person that has made your life a little bit more luminous than luminous beings we are, then we can also put up a candle for that person. We'll let you know. All righty. Pizza or burgers tonight? I had pizza.